God. There are so many ways we see things differently, but where we 100% agree is that human beings should be looking for ways to come together, optimistically and respectfully approaching the world and one another, looking for new ways that we might organize society and reflect power. This part of the conversation is absolutely fantastic. You are going to love it. Stay with it right to the end because you don't want to miss anything that might change your life. Hit me up in the comments below with your questions and inquiries. If you don't subscribe already, subscribe right now and stay to the end so you can sign up for my mailing list in case I ever need to speak to you beyond the confines of this particular platform. See you in a minute. You're going to love this conversation. You know, when art or music, and I suppose in your case science, and in my case, because sometimes like watching your stuff or Neil deGrasse Tyson's or, you know, like Carl Sagan and stuff, you like when you're taken to that point of absolute wonder, when you think, oh my God, I actually can't hold that in my head anymore, you know, and like that could happen though in a beautiful animation or a beautiful piece of music where you're taken to that place, like that's sort of beyond me, and you feel, that numinism, you feel that sense of this is beyond my faculties to know this, but I feel something greater, whether that is, you know, and however you want to define that is, you know, of course. This precipice that can be reached through art and through just observation, really, observation and expression of the beauty of our reality. It has become increasingly excluded, I feel, from our cultural and social life. And I feel, Brian, that you and, you know, some of the other, let's just talk about you don't seem to me typical of, you know, not that it's not really a crowded field, is it? Sort of a science entertainer, communicators. I mean, there's not loads of you really out there, but generally speaking, you know that there's this, you'll be familiar with the term scientism. You'll be familiar, of course, with a type of scientific understanding that's used to underwrite certainty. You'll be familiar too that recently, politically, scientific understanding has been, to some degree, necessarily been used to underwrite policy. You know, when it comes to conversations about gender, when it comes to the conversation about governments mandating stuff, can you see sometimes when it comes to the field of chemistry and pharmacology and the sort of the irresponsibility, and I think we're on legally safe territory when we say with the opioid crisis, that science is occasionally a subset of corporatism. Science is occasionally a subset of power. Science is sometimes a subset of politics vis-a-vis gender conversations and sexuality conversations. How do you retain your own purity? How do you retain your own, presumably your own disgust, in the same way as that I would be disgusted with anyone using religion as a way of reaching, being dogmatic, certain, condemnatory? How do you manage the misuse, I would call it, of science? And, you know, be as specific as you want, obviously.
Well, I mean, a very good example is the pandemic, because what you saw there was science in action in real time in a very serious situation. So if you go back, 3 years, then we don't know anything about this virus at all. It may have been in some animal reservoir, in bats or something. We didn't know about it. We had no knowledge about this virus. And then we discover it. And then we start to do science in order to understand it, understand how it transmits, develop vaccines and so on. So what you saw there was real-time research. And I think that many people, and politicians are just in general not scientists, they're just people, right? They didn't know, they misunderstood that process. It's very easy in politics to say, well, we heard it, right? This is the science. We are following the science. As if there is a little book that you can open and there's a list of things and it says, right, do this. This is what you should do. You should wear masks in enclosed spaces, or you should do this and that and so on. When actually what was happening was people were doing research and then finding out that, okay, so is this thing airborne or not? We didn't know actually initially. Does it spread mainly in droplets? Does it spread on surfaces? So as you find out more about the thing, then the advice changes. And that's where I think there can be a problem, because that word, the advice changes. A lot of people, I think, tend to think that if advice changes, then the previous advice was wrong. It undermines the authority of the people that gave the advice. That's not the case in science. It's not that the best way to look at science is that we never claim that we're right, right? All we're saying is that this is the best snapshot of our opinion at some time, and it will change. And then on top of that, you're right, the undercurrent of your question is that people who are disingenuous, who are not practicing what we've been speaking about, which is humility and just trying to understand nature and understand a new thing, be it a pandemic disease or the evolution of the universe, that disingenuous people can just take the one piece of advice that backs up their prejudice and then use it vocally in order to justify their actions. And that's where it goes wrong. So it's not, it all goes back to we've got to understand that science is not a belief system, right? It's not, scientists don't sit on a mountain passing down stone tablets to the people at the bottom saying, this is it. As I just said, go back to what I said about Feynman and Oppenheimer. Science is a satisfactory philosophy of ignorance. And so I think the problems occur, that they can occur sometimes. The scientists can, it's very hard. I had great respect for the scientists that were working during the pandemic, the public-facing scientists, because they're not people necessarily who understand the nuance of communicating with the public, right? They're scientists. And so they're likely to say, well, at the moment, we don't know everything, but we know this, and so we think you should do this. But then they might not even say, because it's kind of obvious to them, that actually we might discover something tomorrow, and then we're going to say you should do the other thing, right? So it's very, very, very difficult, especially in a serious situation like a pandemic, to communicate that. It's an argument for science education, actually, because you need to, from being a child, from very young, if you can just understand that this is contingent knowledge, it's constantly evolving, you can't be told what to do, right? Science is not going to tell you what to do, because with certainty, because we might find something else out tomorrow. But that, I said it before, the point is it's the method we have of acquiring reliable knowledge.